Miles' heart glanced at the digital clock on his office wall, 11:03 p.m. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, even though the building's air conditioning was still humming. Work had dragged on for hours, a seemingly endless night of spreadsheets and loan portfolios at Midtown District Bank, where he was a senior manager. The fluorescent lights above cast a sterile glow over his desk. Right then, his phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Unknown. If you still care about your family, come home. Now. A chill ran through Miles's veins. It was his 17th wedding anniversary with Carmen Drake Carmen Hart, legally, but she'd barely acknowledged him all day. They used to do small traditions each anniversary. A card on the kitchen counter, maybe dinner at their favorite spot. This year, radio silence. He stuffed scattered papers into his briefcase, ignoring the dryness in his mouth. Was Carmen in danger? Or was it some twisted prank? His colleague Travis, who worked late on the same floor, spotted Miles rushing out. Travis. You good, man? Miles. Not sure. Gotta head home. Without more explanation, Miles bolted toward the elevator. As he drove out of the nearly deserted parking garage, the city's skyline flickered under the midnight glow. 1,000 questions pummeled his mind. Why this strange text? Did something happen to the kids Aubrey or Calvin? His heartbeat thundered against his chest. Rounding the final corner onto his suburban street, he noticed a dark gray sedan parked near the hedge outside his house. The porch light was off, but an upstairs window glowed with an eerie, flickering warmth. He killed the engine and stepped out, the night air heavy with the sweet scent of magnolia. That scent usually calmed him. Tonight, it made his stomach knot up. He approached slowly, the beep of his car locking behind him oddly loud. At the door, he fumbled with his keys but realized the door was already unlocked. Inside, the hallway lights were off. An uneasy hush enveloped everything. He heard muffled sounds, overhead footsteps, laughter, something. Miles, whispering to himself. Aubrey, Calvin, where are you? He climbed the stairs, each step creaking louder than usual, or perhaps his nerves were in overdrive. A fleeting idea raced through his mind. Maybe Carmen planned some surprise? Maybe I'm freaking out for no reason. But no, something felt undeniably off, like static electricity prickling the back of his neck. At the top, the door to the main bedroom was cracked open. Light spilled into the hallway, a harsh flickering glow from the bedside lamps. He could hear soft voices, a low murmur. Adrenaline spiked inside him. He feared an intruder, or worse. He pressed his palm to the door, pushing it open, and then his world collapsed. Carmen was on their bed, tangled up with a man Miles had never seen before. The stranger's shirt lay tossed on the floor, next to Carmen's blouse. Miles's heart hammered as if trying to break free of his rib cage. Miles. What the hell? Carmen sprang upright for a heartbeat, eyes locking with Miles's. Yet there was no immediate panic in her face, just a flicker of annoyance. The man beside her grunted and turned to see what was happening. Carmen, voice curiously cold. If you know what's good for you, step out and let us finish. Her words sliced through Miles like shattered glass. He felt his throat clench, mind reeling with disbelief. For a surreal second, he stared at the tangled sheets where he and Carmen used to share mornings with coffee and gentle talk. Now it was a stage for betrayal. Miles, voice shaking. Carmen, are you out of your mind? The stranger grabbed a pillow to cover himself, but Carmen showed no shame, no hurry. She slid off the bed unruffled as though Miles were the intruder. Carmen, you're early. I thought you'd be stuck at that bank all night. Didn't you say the workload was insane? Miles, don't do this. Please. Just... His voice cracked. He didn't know if he was begging her to stop or if he was trying to coax himself to believe this wasn't real. Carmen, with an icy laugh. What's your plan? Make a big scene? It's our anniversary, Miles. You left me bored out of my mind. Miles's anger roared up, mingling with devastation. His fists clenched at his sides, wanting to lash out, but he felt paralyzed. Carmen's scornful gaze pinned him. Carmen, if you're not leaving, let me handle it for you. Get out, now. A bitter taste filled Miles's mouth. All the illusions of a stable marriage crashed in a single breath. He sensed tears brimming in his eyes, but pride held them back. Without another word, he turned away, footsteps unsteady. Downstairs, the living room was dark and unwelcoming, family photos on the walls mocking him. He grabbed his phone, wallet, and the spare jacket hanging off a chair. Carmen's voice echoed from upstairs, but he couldn't make out the words, and he didn't care. He couldn't bear to see that smug expression again. Within minutes, he was back in his car, engine revving. He sped off into the night, lights from neighboring houses flickering across his windshield. The shock pounded in his chest like a drumbeat of betrayal. 17 years wiped out in a single moment. How could she be so cruel? The thought looped in his mind like a haunting melody. His phone buzzed with another text. He refused to check it. Possibly Carmen's words, or maybe that unknown caller again. Miles drove aimlessly until he spotted a dingy roadside motel with a flickering neon sign that read, "Vacancy." His entire life had just imploded, and he had nowhere else to go. Happy anniversary indeed, he thought bitterly, pulling into the empty parking lot. He sat there a long moment, letting the engine idle. At last, he killed the ignition and exhaled shakily. There, under the harsh neon glow, he pressed his forehead to the steering wheel, tears finally breaking free in ragged sobs. The motel room door clicked shut behind Miles as he stepped onto the grimy carpeting. A single overhead bulb cast a weak, yellowish light across peeling wallpaper. The air smelled faintly of old cigarettes. This was no place to celebrate an anniversary, but it was all he had at the moment. He dropped his briefcase on a rickety table near the TV set, then stared at his phone. A wave of numbness washed over him. Should I call someone? The kids? No, it's too late. They might be asleep, or maybe Carmen told them something. He couldn't begin to guess the lies she might spin. Sinking onto the stiff mattress, he finally dared to check his screen. Several missed calls, some from unknown numbers, but also from Carmen. Text messages scrolled by in quick succession. Carmen. Where did you run off to? Carmen. You think ignoring me will fix this? Carmen. Come back if you have any sense. Don't make it worse. Miles felt his jaw tighten. She acted like he was the one causing a scene, as if he were a petty child who'd stormed off. The sheer gall of it nearly made him throw his phone at the wall. Instead, he tossed it on the bed and rubbed his eyes. Miles, muttering, "She's the one who no, I can't deal with her manipulations tonight." Drawing a deep breath, he rummaged for a business card in his wallet. His lawyer's name, Helen Wu, was etched in neat letters. They'd casually met at a friends' gathering a year prior. She'd mentioned family law. Never thought I'd need her. But now, the idea of a clean break from Carmen felt like his only lifeline. He dialed Helen's office number, no answer at this hour, so he left a subdued voicemail, voice trembling. Miles. Helen, it's Miles Hart. I'm sorry for calling so late. I'm going to need your help with a divorce. Please call me tomorrow. I'm serious. He hung up, heart pounding. Divorce. The word clanged in his mind, both terrifying and strangely liberating. He pictured Aubrey and Calvin, just 14 and 16. What will this do to them? His phone buzzed again, this time from a contact he recognized. Laurel Flynn, his longtime friend and colleague. For a second he hesitated, but then answered. Miles. Yeah? Laurel, soft tone. Miles, you okay? Someone from the office mentioned you rushed out. They said you looked shaken. Miles, swallowing hard. I'm not okay. It's Carmen. She cheated, Laurel, in my own damn house. Laurel. Oh God, Miles, I'm so sorry. Where are you? Miles, glancing around the dingy room. Some motel off I-57. I can't go home. Not tonight. Laurel. Listen, do you need me to come get you? We can talk. Miles, voice trembling but calmer. No, I appreciate it. But I need to handle this alone. I'm calling a lawyer first thing. I can't let Carmen. Laurel, hey, it's your decision. But keep in mind the kids, okay? They're caught in the middle. Miles. I know. This is going to break them, but it's broken me too, Laurel. Silence thickened between them. Laurel's steady breathing was a reminder that the rest of the world still spun outside his personal hell. Laurel. Call me if you need anything. Promise? Miles. I promise. Thanks. He ended the call and leaned back against the musty pillows, eyes stinging. The overhead bulb flickered, casting shifting shadows on the walls. His mind whirred with strategy. Freeze the joint bank account? Move assets? Protect the kids' college funds? He hated to think this way about the woman he once adored, but her cold eyes that night, they told him she was far gone. Out the window, a lone street lamp illuminated the empty parking lot. The neon motel sign buzzed faintly, an electric hum that matched his anxious pulse. He couldn't remember the last time he felt so powerless. In a final act of defiance, he turned off his phone, refusing to read Carmen's next barrage of messages. He wanted no contact with her. Tomorrow, reality would come crashing again, but for now, he needed a moment of quiet to steel himself for the ugly battle ahead. Shifting onto his side, he pulled the scratchy motel blanket over him. Thoughts tumbled in a chaotic stream, half-formed images of Carmen's sneer, the stranger's presence, and his children's innocent faces. Eventually, exhaustion won out, and he drifted into an uneasy sleep under the glaring neon. Early morning sunlight crept under the motel's flimsy curtains, stirring miles from a sleepless haze. Every muscle ached as he sat up, confronted by chipped wallpaper and the stale odor of the room. He checked the time, 7:12 a.m. I can't hide here forever. After a lukewarm shower, he dressed in yesterday's clothes, splashed water on his face in the sink. The reflection in the mirror looked hollowed, a faint bruise under each eye from stress. Grabbing his keys, he inhaled deeply. Time to face the wreckage. The drive home felt longer than usual. His head pounded with worry about Aubrey and Calvin. He had no idea whether they knew the truth. Should I text them first? He nearly pulled over to do so, but something about confronting them face-to-face felt more right, more honest, even if they blamed him. When he arrived at the house, Carmen's sedan was gone from the driveway, but the kids' bikes were scattered out front. The morning air was brisk, birds chirping a bright contrast to Miles's churning thoughts. He stepped inside. Silence pressed in on him. The living room looked ordinary at first glance, but the memory of last night's horror flashed like lightning. He closed his eyes briefly, summoning the courage to call out, "Miles. Aubrey? Calvin? You guys here?" Footsteps pounded overhead, followed by the appearance of two anxious faces at the top of the stairs. 16-year-old Aubrey led the way, wearing an oversized sweatshirt, eyes red as if she'd been crying. Calvin, 14, hovered behind her, frowning. Aubrey. "Dad, where were you all night? Mom said she said you just left her." Calvin. "Did you really cheat on her first? Mom told us everything." Miles's breath caught in his throat. Carmen had wasted no time twisting the narrative. He gazed up at them, heartbreak etched across his features. Miles. "Kids, I didn't cheat on your mother. She's..." His voice cracked. "I came home last night and found her with another man." The siblings exchanged startled glances, not fully convinced. Aubrey took a shaky step down. Aubrey. "Mom told us you're the one messing around with some co-worker. She said that's why you were so distant, that you went crazy and ran off." Miles. "Sweetheart, I have no reason to lie. I swear to you, I'm telling the truth." A tear slipped down Aubrey's cheek. Calvin's gaze darted uncertainly. Calvin. "But you just left? Why would you abandon us here? If Mom was cheating, why didn't you kick that guy out?" Miles, his voice trembling with anger and sorrow. "Because your mother. She basically told me to get out, and I couldn't. I lost it, okay? I was humiliated. I needed to breathe, to think. I stayed at a motel." The silence swelled. Aubrey hugged herself, tears welling again. Aubrey. "Mom said you always choose your job over her. She said she was lonely." Miles. "I've been working late, yes, but for this family, for your future. That never gave her the right to do what she did." Calvin looked torn, stepping onto the first-floor landing. Calvin. "So you're not living here anymore? We came home this morning, saw half your stuff gone. It's like you've given up on us." Those words crushed Miles. He wanted to shout that he would never give up on them. Instead, he reached out a hand, though they were still a few feet away. Miles. "I didn't pack everything. I just took what I need for now. Your mother's betrayal cut me deep. I'm meeting with a lawyer about a divorce." Aubrey let out a shaky breath, hugging Calvin's arm. The weight of that word, divorce, hung in the air like a thundercloud. Aubrey, voice cracking. "Dad, no, this can't be happening." Miles. "I wish it wasn't. But you two deserve the truth. I'll never walk out on you. Carmen, she's going to twist facts, but I promise I'm here when you need me. Suddenly, a phone chimed. Aubrey fished her cell from a pocket, eyes darting across a new text. She bit her lip. Aubrey, Mom just said we shouldn't trust you, that you'll say anything to get sympathy. Miles's jaw tensed. He realized the fight for his children's trust had truly begun. Miles, I understand you might be confused or angry with me, but no matter what your mother says, you are both my priority. Let me figure out a place to stay. We'll talk whenever you're ready. He turned to leave, tension radiating through the hallway. The father inside him wanted to hug them close and never let go, but their expressions showed more confusion than acceptance. If he stayed, Carmen might return at any moment, fueling more chaos. Miles, I love you both. He managed those final words before stepping onto the porch. His hands trembled as he closed the door behind him. Nothing had felt so wrong, so out of place, in this house once a symbol of familial warmth. Now it was a battlefield of betrayal. He walked to his car, heart heavy. Aubrey and Calvin needed him, but they were caught in Carmen's net of deception, and he feared the worst was yet to come. One day later, Miles stood outside a modest brick law office in a quieter part of town. A crisp morning sun lit the sign, Helen Wu, family law attorney. The brief conversation they'd had over the phone earlier confirmed she'd handle his case. Now he was here to make it official. Inside, the reception area was small but welcoming, with potted plants and soothing pastel walls. Miles's gut churned. Is this really happening? He'd always believed his marriage could withstand any storm, just not the storm of Carmen's betrayal. Receptionist. Mr. Hart? Miss Wu will see you now. He followed her down a short hallway into a bright office. Helen Wu, a poised woman in her 40s, sat behind a wooden desk stacked with case files. She rose to shake his hand. Helen, Miles, it's good to see you. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. Miles. Thanks for making time so quickly. They settled in, the door clicking shut. He recounted the events of the past days, the text message that drew him home, the man in his bed, Carmen's brazen attitude. Helen jotted notes, occasionally pausing to clarify detail. Helen. So, you left the house that night. Have you spoken with your wife since? Miles. No direct conversations, just vile texts from her. She blames me for leaving. Helen, frowning. That suggests she'll likely claim abandonment or blame you for irreconcilable differences. Meanwhile, you have evidence of adultery? Miles. I walked in on them. He exhaled, voice shaking. And I have a friend, Laurel, who knows what happened, though she didn't witness it. Carmen even admitted it in her texts, in a twisted way. Helen's pen hovered. Helen. If Carmen admitted wrongdoing, keep those messages. They'll help. Adultery can weigh heavily in property division or spousal support negotiations, though we're in a no-fault state. Still, it's good leverage. Miles, grim nod. Understood. My biggest concern is my kids. Aubrey's 16, Calvin's 14. Carmen's already poisoning them. Helen offered a sympathetic look. Helen, we can push for joint custody or at least standard visitation. Teens have input, but if you show you're stable, we can keep contact. Be ready for Carmen to fight. She might demand high alimony or child support. Miles. I make decent money at the bank, but I refuse to let her squander it. She's been unfaithful for who knows how long. He spat out the last words, remembering Carmen's smug expression. Helen set down her pen, eyes meeting his. Helen, if you're sure about this path, I'll file the initial petition right away. We'll aim to freeze joint accounts to prevent her from draining them. Any joint credit cards? Miles. Yes, I'll call and cancel them, or at least remove myself. Helen. Good. Keep everything above board. Don't do anything rash. Courts prefer calm, documented approaches. Miles nodded, a surge of determination lacing his voice. He was done letting Carmen manipulate him. Helen slid a stack of forms across the desk. Helen, fill these out. We'll move forward. If you have any financial records or messages from Carmen, gather them. The more evidence, the clearer our strategy. Miles. I'll email them tonight. She stood, offering a reassuring nod. Helen. You're doing the right thing if you truly see no way to reconcile. But divorce is never easy, especially for your kids. You'll need patience both legally and emotionally. He forced a tight smile, stepping out of her office. The corridor felt suffocating, yet a part of him felt relief. He was no longer Carmen's doormat. As he reached the front desk, he rummaged for his wedding ring, a reflex from habit. But it wasn't on his finger. He'd taken it off last night in the motel, stuffed it into his coat pocket. Glancing around to ensure no one watched, he withdrew the ring. It glinted under the fluorescent lights, a small circle of gold that once symbolized a future he believed in. Now, it was an emblem of broken promises. Miles, whispering, "I'm done." He walked to a trash bin in the hall. Heart hammering, he resisted an urge to fling the ring inside. Instead, he clenched his fist, stuffed it back into his pocket. Not here. Not like this. Maybe he'd pawn it or discard it another day. For now, the emptiness in his chest was enough. Outside, the sun shone too brightly. He took a few steps toward his sedan and paused, a breeze rustling through the parking lot. His phone buzzed, a new text from Laurel, asking how the meeting went. Then a second message popped up from Aubrey, short but trembling in implication. "Aubrey, Mom's furious. She says you'll regret what you're doing. She told us never to speak to you, but I'm scared, Dad." Miles exhaled shakily, typing a quick response. "Miles, we'll figure this out, okay? I love you, honey. I'm not giving up on you or Calvin." He pressed send, then stared at the phone in his palm. Carmen's war had begun, but so had his determination to break free. He got into his car, forging a resolution. No matter how ugly things got, he'd protect Aubrey and Calvin and himself from Carmen's corrosive manipulations. With the ignition turned, the engine rumbled to life. The road ahead looked daunting, but he'd taken the first step. He would not look back. A brisk morning wind brushed against Miles Hart's face as he stepped out of his sedan, parked in front of a low-rise courthouse made of pale brick. The building stood along a quiet stretch of city streets, its American flag fluttering overhead. Miles smoothed down the wrinkles in his charcoal gray suit, feeling a tension coil in his stomach. Today was the first hearing in his divorce proceeding against Carmen Drake. He clutched a worn file folder containing all the evidence he could gather. A few text messages where Carmen hinted at having company while Miles was away, plus written statements from a private detective Laurel had recommended. Miles had barely slept, reliving the betrayal over and over. But now, the time had come to face it head-on. Inside the courthouse lobby, a uniformed officer directed him through security. The overhead fluorescents buzzed faintly as he walked down a hall lined with wooden benches and scuffed linoleum floors. Eventually, he reached a small courtroom where his lawyer, Helen Wu, was already waiting. Helen, quietly, "Miles, you doing okay?" Miles, exhaling, "Not really, but let's get through this." They took their seats at a narrow table. Opposite them sat Carmen, wearing a sharp black blazer and perched with rigid posture. Next to her was a new lawyer Miles didn't recognize, a tall woman in her late 30s named Taylor Givens, scanning her phone with an air of confidence. When the judge, a middle-aged man with silver-rimmed glasses, entered, everyone rose. The hearing kicked off with formalities. Miles's pulse hammered as he listened to Carmen's lawyer speak first. Givens, "Your Honor, my client, Miss Drake, firmly denies any wrongdoing in this marriage. She's been neglected. Her husband prioritizes his bank career. She contends Miles Hart emotionally abandoned the family months ago." Miles gritted his teeth. Emotionally abandoned? The word stung, but he forced himself to remain calm. Then Helen presented Miles's side, swiftly outlining Carmen's adultery and manipulative behaviors. Helen, "Your Honor, we have tangible evidence. Here are photographs taken by a licensed investigator, plus text messages from Miss Drake, strongly suggesting extramarital relationships." Carmen's cheeks colored slightly. She shot Miles a disdainful glare. Before the judge could respond, the courtroom door swung open. Aubrey and Calvin stepped in, guided by a bailiff. Miles's heart twisted. He hadn't expected them to appear so soon. Judge, gently, "Kids, do you understand why you're here?" Aubrey, voice trembling, "Yes, sir. We want to stay with Mom. She's the one who cares about us, not Dad." Calvin, frowning at Miles, "Dad's never around. We don't trust him anymore." A pang of helplessness shot through Miles. He noticed Carmen's tight smirk, as if she had rehearsed all of this. He wanted to speak, to refute their claims, but Helen placed a reassuring hand on his arm, indicating it was best not to lash out. Judge, after flipping through some documents, it seems there's significant conflict here. The court will require further negotiation and evidence before making custody or support orders. I'm granting a temporary continuance. Counsel, come back next month with more documentation. Relief and frustration mingled in Miles's gut. The hearing was adjourned, but nothing truly settled. As people filed out, Carmen made sure to confront Miles in the corridor. Her voice carried that familiar, mocking edge. Carmen, enjoy your little investigation. By the time you gather all that evidence, I'll have these kids so firmly on my side you won't stand a chance. Miles, speaking low but firm, I'm fighting for them no matter what you say. Aubrey and Calvin stood nearby, their faces pinched with uncertainty. They gave Miles hardly a glance before following Carmen. The swirl of people in the hallway felt suffocating, a storm of battered hopes and legal jargon. Helen turned to Miles. Helen, we'll prep everything for the next session. Don't lose hope, but brace yourself. Carmen's pushing to restrict visitation if she can. She wants financial support and sole custody. Miles, she threatened me with that. She claims I won't see them if I don't cough up money. Helen, nodding grimly, she'll try anything. They walked toward the exit. Outside, the sharp sunlight made Miles squint. He paused near a bench under a leafless oak tree, chest heavy. The children had looked at him like he was some kind of villain, all courtesy of Carmen's manipulations. Miles, voice thick. Helen, I won't back down, but how do I handle my kids turning against me? Helen, show them you care. Keep communication open. It might take time, but trust me, if we can prove Carmen's deceit, the truth will help. Miles nodded and trudged to his car. The emptiness felt heavier than ever. Today was just the beginning of a long fight, one that might cost him his peace of mind. But he refused to let Carmen's lies stand unchallenged. Late that week, Miles sat in a bustling coffee shop downtown Sugar Maple Cafe, with its warm vintage lampshades and walls hung with local artwork. The smell of freshly ground beans usually soothed him, but right now, tension coiled in his stomach like a rattlesnake. Aubrey had texted him the night before, saying she and Calvin would meet him here for a serious talk. He sipped an Americano, eyes flicking to the window every time a figure passed. Eventually, the door swung open, and in walked his two teenagers. They looked uncertain for half a second, scanning the crowded tables, then spotted him. Aubrey in a denim jacket, hair pulled into a messy bun. Calvin in a hoodie, restless expression beneath his baseball cap. Aubrey, hey, Dad. Calvin, we're not staying long. We just have questions. Miles gestured at two free chairs. Their subdued body language told him this wouldn't be a pleasant chat. Miles, I'm glad you're here. I've missed you. They sat down, but neither looked fully comfortable. Calvin fiddled with a straw wrapper while Aubrey spoke in a clipped tone. Aubrey, look, Mom says the court might force you to pay a bunch of money if you drag this out. She's stressed, and so are we. Calvin, we hate the drama, Dad. Why can't you just finalize it without making everything complicated? Miles's chest tightened. Miles, kids, your mom cheated on me. She's lying to you about so many things. She's demanding money I'm not sure she's even entitled to. Aubrey, cutting him off. She explained all that. Mom says you only care about not losing your precious income. The overhead lights cast a bright glare on their tense faces. The hum of coffee machines behind them gave the conversation an odd background noise, as if they were actors on a stage none of them wanted to be on. Calvin, we don't want to hear excuses. We just want you to defund us, you know? School fees, daily stuff. But we'd rather stay with Mom. That's it. Miles, Calvin, I'm your father. I want to be in your lives, not just a wallet. A raw silence fell. Aubrey exchanged a glance with her brother. Then she exhaled, voice heavy with bitterness. Aubrey, we came to say we'd appreciate it if you didn't fight over custody or anything. Send the money. Let us live our lives. We don't really want you involved right now. The words struck Miles like a physical blow. He felt the color drain from his face. Was Carmen's poison that potent? He tried to keep his composure, though a tremor shook his hand. Miles, you can't just cut me out. What about the times we spent vacations, birthdays? I love you, and you both know that. Aubrey, lips trembling a bit. People change, Dad. You've changed. We've changed. Calvin, muttering. Just let it go. Stop making this a war with Mom. Miles's frustration and sadness erupted, fueling his tone. Miles, I'm not the one who started this war. You think I wanted your mom to cheat? You think I wanted to leave my own house? A couple of patrons nearby glanced over, sensing the tension. Aubrey's cheeks reddened. Aubrey, you're causing a scene, see? This is why Miles, raising his voice despite himself. Because you're telling me to just give you money and vanish from your lives? I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. Calvin stood abruptly, nearly toppling his chair. His eyes flashed with hurt. Calvin, we knew it. You never listen. You only think about yourself. Let's go, Aubrey. Aubrey shot Miles a look that teetered between anger and regret, then followed Calvin out. Miles remained at the small table, breath shallow, heart pounding. Coffee cups clinked across the cafe, and murmured voices continued as if nothing extraordinary had happened. He stared at the empty chairs. I'm your father, not an ATM, he whispered to no one in particular. The barista glanced over sympathetically, but Miles just rubbed his temples, swallowing a surge of grief. He realized this might be the darkest point of his relationship with his kids. They genuinely didn't want him around. After a few moments, he stood and grabbed his coat, leaving his half-finished Americano on the table. As he stepped outside, bright morning sun contrasted harshly with the knot in his chest. He swore quietly under his breath, then trudged toward his car, half wondering if any glimmer of hope was left to fix things with Aubrey and Calvin. A week passed in a haze of paperwork, tense calls with Helen, and countless hours holed up in his office. Each morning, Miles forced himself to show up at Midtown District Bank, but the hush of rumors trailed him like an unwelcome shadow. Some co-workers whispered how he'd smashed his wedding ring in front of them. Others speculated about his mental state. The bank lobby's polished floors and glass partitions felt colder than usual. One afternoon, as Miles pored over a thick loan portfolio, he heard a knock on his office door. It was Laurel Flynn, her expression a blend of concern and warmth. Laurel, hey, thought I'd check on you. Haven't seen you in the cafeteria lately. Miles, managing a small smile. It's been rough, Laurel. My kids are basically disowning me. Court's a mess. Carmen's out for blood. Laurel, I'm sorry. I also hear the higher-ups have started to worry about your performance. You've been scarily quiet, even for you. Miles leaned back, letting out a slow breath. He rubbed his eyes, which burned from too many late nights. The spreadsheet on his computer blurred under the harsh fluorescent glare. Miles, I'm just stuck. Everywhere I turn, my personal crisis is on display. Gossip, tension. I can't outrun it. Laurel, maybe a transfer would help you start fresh. I know we have positions in other branches. You could talk to HR? He eyed her, realizing she might be right. Since the fiasco at home, each hallway conversation at the bank seemed to revolve around his downfall. Even Travis, who once was friendly, barely met his eye, probably afraid of stepping on a social landmine. Miles, a transfer, that's a big move, but maybe it's what I need to keep my sanity. Laurel set a cup of coffee on his desk with a sympathetic nod. Then she left him to his thoughts. Alone again, Miles stared at the city skyline through the wide window. Storm clouds gathered at the horizon, thunder rumbling faintly an echo of the storm in his life. That evening, he found himself at home alone. Not the home he once shared with Carmen, but a cramped apartment he'd rented on short notice, a stopgap arrangement. Boxes half unpacked cluttered the living room. The overhead light flickered every so often, reminding him of the cheap lease conditions. He scrolled through his phone's contacts. Aubrey, Calvin. The names glared back. He hadn't heard from them since that day at the cafe. A leaden guilt weighed on him for snapping at them, but he also felt blindsided by how cruelly they'd told him to just pay up. Miles, quietly to himself. I've lost my home, my kids' trust. Carmen's turned it all upside down. Setting the phone aside, he absent-mindedly fidgeted with the broken wedding ring he had retrieved from a drawer. The metal was warped from where he'd struck it against a desk in a moment of rage, a symbolic reminder that his marriage was beyond repair. Suddenly, a beep indicated a new email on his laptop. It was from HR at Midtown District Bank, referencing a potential managerial opening in a bigger city branch Riverside Financial District. This must be what Laurel hinted at. The message read, "Position available, recommended by Miss Flynn. If interested, an immediate interview can be arranged." He let out a hollow laugh. Did he want to uproot his life again? But maybe distance was necessary somewhere to escape the swirling rumors, to push reset. He typed a quick reply expressing serious interest. "Miles," voice hushed. "I can't fix my family from here anyway, not while Carmen manipulates everything. Maybe if I go away, gather myself, I'll come back stronger, or at least stop being the laughingstock." Thunder rolled outside, and a flash of lightning illuminated the room. He thought about how he used to love summer storms, the cozy feeling of Carmen and the kids inside the house, reading books while the sky opened up. That memory felt like a lifetime ago. His phone buzzed Helen, sending an update that Carmen's lawyer was refusing any settlement discussion. They wanted full custody, more money. Miles sighed. It was all too predictable. Miles, typing a weary reply, "Understood. I might be taking a position in another city soon. Let's coordinate by phone if that happens." Shutting the laptop, he leaned back into the couch, listening to the rain pelt the windows. The question pounded in his mind. Am I abandoning my fight if I leave, or am I just finding a stable ground to stand on? He had no clear answer. All he knew was he was drowning in heartbreak here, and a fresh start might be the only lifeline left. 2 weeks later, Miles stepped off an airport shuttle in Riverside, a bustling metropolis known for its towering office buildings and energetic vibe. The crisp, late-afternoon air carried the mingled scents of roasted street peanuts and exhaust fumes. Overhead, digital billboards glowed against a sky turning orange at dusk. His black suitcase bumped along the sidewalk as he navigated toward a tall glass building downtown Riverside Bank Center, where his new branch manager's orientation would take place. HR had fast-tracked his transfer, apparently short-staffed and eager for an experienced manager. Miles was thankful for the swift process. It saved him from limbo back at Midtown. Inside the lobby, polished marble floors and a sleek modern reception greeted him. A security guard checked his appointment, then directed him up to the 18th floor. The elevator ride was dizzyingly quick, windows revealing a sprawl of city lights beyond. Miles caught sight of his own reflection. He looked tired, but oddly determined. Stepping out, he followed the corridor to a conference room with minimalist decor. A handful of employees milled around, chatting or sipping water from a cooler. An older man in a Navy suit introduced himself as Walter Byrne, the branch's senior director. He gave Miles a firm handshake. "Walter, welcome aboard, Miles. We're excited to have you. I know transitions aren't easy, but you'll find Riverside a dynamic environment." Miles: "Thank you, sir. Looking forward to contributing." Walter made some introductions, naming various staff members. Then he turned to a young woman sorting through files near a row of gray lockers. "Walter, and this is Danielle Reyes. She handles key audits in our finance unit. Danielle, meet Miles Hart, our new manager from Midtown District." Danielle looked up, flashing a quick yet warm smile. She was about early 30s, with shoulder-length dark hair and a confident presence. She wore a tailored blouse and black slacks, a casual but professional look. Danielle, friendly tone: "Nice to meet you, Miles. Hope the city hasn't overwhelmed you yet." Miles: "Not yet," he chuckled softly, "though it's definitely bigger than what I'm used to." Her voice carried a calm assurance that put him slightly at ease. He noticed a subtle accent, or perhaps just a hint of musicality in her speech, like she'd grown up speaking Spanish at home. Walter gave them a moment to talk before moving to greet someone else. Danielle: "So, manager from Midtown, huh? Must be a big leap. If you need a crash course on how we do things in Riverside, let me know." Miles: "I appreciate that. I might take you up on it soon. New city, new everything." He trailed off, glancing at the stack of paperwork under her arm. He didn't want to reveal he was basically running from personal chaos. The fluorescent lights flickered against the modern glass walls, giving the space a bright, open feel. Danielle, slightly teasing. You look exhausted. I bet HR's already got you swamped. They love burying new arrivals in forms. Miles, managing a small grin. I can handle a mountain of forms. He paused, unsure how much to share. It's simpler than my personal life right now. Danielle's gaze flicked sympathetically, but she didn't pry. Instead, she gave a small nod, as if to say, I understand more than you think. Danielle. Sometimes work is a refuge, right? Anyway, if you have any questions, you can find me in the finance wing. I'm usually the last to leave. A gentle handshake followed, and she returned to her tasks, leaving Miles oddly relieved to have encountered someone approachable on day one. He turned to collect the orientation packet from a staff assistant, feelings swirling inside him, mild excitement, lingering heartbreak, a glimmer of cautious hope. An hour later, after a flurry of paperwork and a brief building tour, Miles pushed open the door to his temporary corporate apartment, a perk of the new job. It was smaller and more modern than he expected, a single-bedroom unit with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Riverside's downtown skyline. The city lights sparkled like 1,000 tiny beacons in the evening gloom. He set his suitcase by the door, heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and possibility. Outside, honking cabs and distant sirens formed a white noise that felt strangely comforting. Miles, softly. New city, new job, maybe a shot at healing. Of course, he couldn't forget the messy custody battle waiting for him. He had phone calls scheduled with Helen, plus any session Carmen's lawyer might demand. Yet, at least for this moment, he had a break from the suffocating whispers of Midtown. Meeting Danielle Reyes had been a brief but welcome reminder that not everyone saw him as a tragic figure or a pariah. Perhaps, if fortune allowed, he could begin rebuilding here one careful step at a time. He collapsed onto the couch with a weary sigh, letting the hush of the apartment wash over him. Tomorrow, he'd dive into a new swirl of responsibilities. But for tonight, he simply closed his eyes, letting the luminous cityscape outside lull him. The future remained uncertain, but at least it was a future he was determined to face head-on, far from the judgment and heartbreak he'd left behind. Miles Hart had spent nearly 2 months at the Riverside branch of the bank, adapting to its bustling vibe and constant deadlines. Yet he mostly kept to himself, arriving early and leaving late, determined to bury lingering memories of the bitter divorce hearings back in Midtown. One Tuesday noon, the floor buzzed with employees scrambling for lunch, but Miles intended to skip the cafeteria rush. In his modest office, just big enough for a desk and a narrow window, he sat reviewing spreadsheets, the overhead fluorescence humming like an anxious heartbeat. Voice at the door. Miles? Sorry to interrupt. He glanced up. Danielle Reyes stood there wearing a breezy blouse in a soft peach color and fitted black pants. She held a takeout menu in one hand, her eyes warm but curious. Danielle. A bunch of us are grabbing lunch at a bistro next door. Thought you might join us. Miles. Oh, thanks, but I'm swamped. He gestured weakly at the spreadsheets. She leaned against the doorframe, unhurried. Sunlight through the window caught subtle highlights in her dark hair. Miles felt a flutter of self-consciousness, but forced a neutral expression. Danielle, smiling gently, we all have a backlog of tasks, but come on, everyone needs a break. Miles, I'm good. Just need to get these done. You know how management can be. He tried not to sound dismissive, but his tone came out more abrupt than he intended. Danielle studied him for a moment, then gave a little nod. Danielle. All right, but if you change your mind, text me. My number's in the company directory. Don't starve yourself, okay? She offered him a menu anyway, then left with a polite wave. Miles exhaled, sinking into his chair. Part of him wanted to say yes. Maybe good company would distract him from the ache that still gnawed at his thoughts. But he couldn't shake the anxiety that any closeness might lead to betrayal again. I'm not ready, he told himself. An hour later, the corridor was hushed as most staff were out. Miles stepped to the break room for coffee. Laurel Flynn had taken a temporary consulting project in Riverside and happened to be in the building. He spotted her rummaging through the communal fridge. Laurel. Miles, perfect timing. I was hoping to catch you. Miles. Laurel, they flew you in to fix our messy loan compliance again? He managed a brief grin. She popped open a bottle of iced tea, motioning him toward a corner table. They sat. Laurel. I'm just here a week or two, but rumor says you've turned into a ghost. People find you polite, but distant. Miles, shrugging stiffly. I'm focusing on my job, that's all. Laurel. Uh-huh. And you're also ignoring possible friendships, like with that friendly coworker Danielle, right? He frowned, recalling the awkward exchange earlier. Am I that obvious? Miles. Danielle's nice, but I'm done with close relationships. We both know how trust ended for me. Laurel lowered her iced tea, her gaze compassionate yet firm. Laurel. Miles, you got burned badly, but you can't keep punishing yourself or others. Not everyone is Carmen. Miles. Easy to say. I'm still tangled in court nonsense, and my kids, they want me to vanish. I can't even get them to text me back. A pang of grief crossed his face as he remembered Aubrey's stony dismissal. Laurel reached out, squeezed his arm gently. Laurel. Hey, I'm sorry. I just don't want to see you miserable forever. Miles, voice thin. I know I appreciate it, but I need time. Laurel studied him, seeming to weigh her words. Laurel. Fine. Just don't slam the door on people who genuinely care. I see how Danielle looks at you like she wants to help, but you won't let her. Miles glanced away, unsettled. Why do people keep suggesting Danielle might be more than just a colleague? Miles. She's a co-worker, that's all. Let's leave it at that. A short silence stretched between them, filled with the mechanical hum of the fridge. Eventually, Laurel left to review her compliance files, while Miles returned to his coffee, which had gone lukewarm. He stared at the brown liquid, losing himself in swirling thoughts. Maybe I am shutting everyone out. But what choice do I have? He finished his coffee in a single gulp, then headed back to his office. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Danielle and another colleague returning from lunch, laughing at some private joke. Miles felt an uninvited pang of envy. I'm not part of that world anymore, he reminded himself, burying the feeling as he resumed typing. The afternoon drifted on, leaving him with the faint regret of a missed opportunity. A week later, the bank clock read 8:45 p.m. when Miles finally glanced up from his desk. Outside, night had settled over Riverside, the skyline a labyrinth of neon signs and streetlights. The rest of the floor was mostly empty. He'd stayed late to finalize a major audit report. As he grabbed his jacket, the overhead lights flickered ominously. Then everything blinked into darkness. He froze. The computer screens, corridor lamps, everything had shut off, leaving the office in a hush broken only by the hum of distant emergency generators. Miles, what on earth? Faint red emergency lighting kicked in along the baseboards, casting a dim glow. He fumbled his phone out, flipping on the flashlight. The corridor stretched eerie and silent. Footsteps echoed behind him. He whipped around to see Danielle Reyes approaching, phone flashlight in hand as well. Danielle, startled but relieved. Miles! So it's not just me. The entire floor must have lost power. Miles. Seems so. Maybe a fuse blew. You're working late too? She nodded, brushing a stray hair from her face. The red glow tinted her silhouette, giving the moment a surreal edge. Danielle. Had to finish reconciling some accounts. Now I'm stuck on this floor with no elevator. Maybe the ground level still has power. Miles. We can check the emergency stairwell. Come on. They made their way carefully, phones providing minimal light. On the landing, the steel door wouldn't budge. It seemed electronically locked from below. Miles cursed under his breath, heart pounding slightly from adrenaline. Danielle, half laughing at the absurdity. This is like one of those escape rooms. At least we're not alone, right? Miles. Sure, a forced team-building exercise. They tried a side corridor leading to the supply rooms, also locked. The entire floor was in lockdown mode. Danielle leaned against the wall, exhaling. Danielle. Well, until maintenance resets the system, we're stuck. Might as well find a safe spot to wait. They ended up in a small break lounge, which had wide windows offering a faint city glow. A backup generator had kicked in somewhere, powering a few overhead fluorescents at low capacity. They each took a seat on stiff vinyl chairs. For a moment they said nothing, just listening to the city's distant sirens and horns through the glass. Miles felt tension coil. He'd spent weeks avoiding personal talk. but now they were basically cornered together. Danielle cleared her throat. Danielle. So, rumor says you left your old branch in less than happy circumstances. Mind if I ask what happened? He stiffened. Usually he deflected these questions, but he recalled Laurel's words about not slamming the door on people who care. Still, he hesitated. Miles, quietly. I had personal issues. My marriage ended badly. I needed a fresh start, I guess. Danielle. I'm sorry. Divorce can be brutal. I nearly walked that path once. She stopped, a flicker of unease crossing her face. Then she shrugged, as if deciding to confide in him. Danielle. My fiancé cheated on me a few years ago. I moved here to cut ties, so I sort of understand. Her voice carried a hint of raw memory. Miles studied her expression. He saw no pity, just empathy. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead again, forcing them momentarily into semi-darkness. Miles, I'm sorry. That's rough. Danielle, a sad smile. I survived. Found a new job, new city. But trusting someone again? That's tough. Miles exhaled, the confession resonating with his own scars. Here we are, two wounded souls in a pitch-black building. He mustered the nerve to reveal more. Miles. My ex-wife Carmen lied about me to our kids, turned them against me. It's complicated. I'm just not in a good headspace. Danielle. I get it. Honestly, you seem like a decent guy who's built a wall around himself. I won't pretend it's easy to tear down. Silence settled again. Miles stared out at the city. A swirl of traffic lights shimmered far below. The conversation made him feel oddly exposed, but also less alone. Miles. Thanks for listening. If we ever get out of here, maybe I'll owe you dinner or something. Danielle, gentle teasing. I'll hold you to that. One day, you'll let me treat you to lunch or dinner. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next month. No rush. She flashed an encouraging smile, and for once, Miles allowed himself to return it, albeit faintly. Just then, the overhead lights hummed back to life. A beep indicated the doors had reactivated. Danielle, rising. Power's back. Guess our team-building exercise is over. Miles, standing too. Lucky us. Let's hope they fix those elevator circuits fast. They collected their belongings and left the lounge. As they reached the elevator bank, they found a startled maintenance worker resetting controls. Danielle turned to Miles. Danielle. We made it through. Thanks for sharing. If only a little. Miles. Thanks for asking. They rode down together, parting ways in the lobby. On his walk back to the corporate apartment, Miles felt a glimmer of relief in his chest. He still had a mountain of unresolved baggage, but a thin crack had opened in his protective shell. Maybe, just maybe, he'd begun a slow path toward trusting someone again. Nighttime in Riverside could be mesmerizing, neon signs reflecting off glass skyscrapers, streams of headlights along wide avenues. But Miles found little comfort in the city's glow when he woke, drenched in sweat, at 3 a.m. The old nightmare had struck again, a vision of Carmen's mocking face, her voice spitting accusations while their children turned away from him. He sat up, gasping in his modest apartment's bedroom. The digital clock's red digits glowed accusingly. Another sleepless night, he thought bitterly, running a hand through his damp hair. By morning, he was bleary-eyed when he trudged into the bank's 18th floor office. A few co-workers greeted him, but he mumbled polite hellos. An hour into his day, he got a text from Helen Wu, his divorce lawyer. Helen, hearing scheduled next week. Carmen demanding more assets. PLS call. Miles felt his pulse spike. He typed a terse reply, promising to discuss details by phone. The thought of facing Carmen's endless demands churned his stomach. He tried focusing on his manager duties, but his mind drifted back to the kids' cold hostility. Late that afternoon, after a particularly grueling meeting, Laurel Flynn caught him in the hallway. She was finishing up her consulting stint in Riverside and wanted to share final notes. Laurel. Hey, you look pale. Everything all right? Miles, forcing a dry chuckle. I can't sleep. Nightmares. Laurel. Carmen? Miles. Like clockwork. Laurel nodded with empathy. They made their way to a quieter corner near a row of storage cabinets. Outside the window, storm clouds gathered, darkening the late-day sky. Miles. I keep replaying scenes of that night. Then I see my kids turning their backs on me. It's like I'm trapped. Laurel. Look, this hearing might get ugly, but you have a right to defend yourself. And you have friends, Miles, me, Danielle, a few good folks here. You're not alone." He tensed at Danielle's name, but Laurel's calm face reminded him of the night they'd first talked about his divorce. "She only wants me to be happy," he reminded himself. He gave a short nod. "Miles. Thanks. I appreciate you always checking up on me." Laurel, with a half grin. "I'm a champion meddler. But seriously, if you need moral support, text me especially after your hearing. I can't stand Carmen's manipulations." He managed a shaky smile. Laurel excused herself to finalize her reports, and he lingered by the window. Rain began to pelt the glass, streaming in rivulets. Across the floor, he spotted Danielle working at her station, brow furrowed as she typed. Something about her presence was oddly grounding. Maybe it was the memory of that blackout conversation. "But what good is any bond if my nightmares remain so strong?" He sighed, returning to his office. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and spreadsheets. By evening, he was the last one there again, lamplight casting his shadow across piles of files. Just as he prepared to leave, a gentle knock sounded. Danielle stood in the doorway, a light jacket draped over her arm. "Danielle, I noticed you hadn't left. Are you pulling another all-nighter?" Miles. "No, I'm, just about to head out." She glanced at the stack of documents on his desk, then at his weary face. A note of concern flickered in her eyes. "Danielle, everything okay? You seem weighed down." Miles, hesitant. "Guess I am. Let's just say personal stuff is flaring up again." She nodded thoughtfully, not pushing too hard. Danielle. "Well, I'm going to run for the train soon. If you want a quick coffee, my treat." He opened his mouth to refuse, but caught himself. A small voice inside whispered that running from kindness hadn't erased his troubles. Maybe a simple coffee wouldn't kill him. Miles. "Sure. Let's grab it downstairs." They rode the elevator to the lobby, stepping through the rotating doors into the rainy street. Across the block, a tiny cafe still had lights on. They hurried through the drizzle, umbrellas forgotten in the rush. At the counter, Miles ordered black coffee while Danielle opted for a chai latte. They found a narrow table by the window. Outside, headlights blurred across the wet pavement, reminding Miles of his mood murky and unsettled. Yet Danielle's presence felt unexpectedly calming. "Danielle, whatever you're dealing with, I'm sure it's tough. But don't keep yourself locked in that office. You're allowed some peace, you know?" Miles, exhaling. "I'm trying. Some days are easier than others." He sipped his coffee, taking a moment to appreciate its warmth. For now, the nightmares and court battles lay outside in the downpour. Here, in a quiet cafe with someone who didn't judge him, he could breathe a little easier. They spoke about small work anecdotes colleagues, upcoming audits, funny slip-ups with new software. Nothing deeply personal, but enough to ease the tension. When they parted ways at the corner, Danielle catching her train and Miles heading to his apartment, he realized he hadn't felt that sense of calm in weeks. That night, though still haunted by regrets, he drifted to sleep with a slightly lighter heart. Small steps, he thought. Maybe that's all I can manage right now. Sunday dawned with a bright spring sunshine over Riverside, an unexpected mildness in the air. Miles woke to a text from Danielle. "Danielle, hey, big family cookout at my parents' place today. A little last minute, but want to come by? If you're free, no pressure. We have amazing grilled chicken." He stared at the phone, unsure. A family gathering? That's a big leap. But he recalled how he'd promised to push himself beyond his comfort zone. He typed a cautious yes. Danielle replied with the address. Apparently her parents lived in a suburban neighborhood just outside the city. That afternoon, he drove past manicured lawns and blooming azaleas, eventually spotting a cozy single-story house with a wide porch. Balloons and bright paper streamers lined the front yard, looked like a cousin's birthday, maybe. Nervousness knotted Miles's stomach. He parked, inhaling deeply before stepping out. Miles Hart's workday was rolling along like any other afternoon at Riverside Bank Center. Phone calls, data entries, and discreet knocks on his office door. Around 3 o'clock, he was reviewing a stack of loan compliance reports when his phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. Ordinarily, he would have let it go to voicemail, but a twinge of curiosity made him answer. Miles. Hello? Miles Hart speaking? Silence crackled at first. Then a soft sob filtered through the line. Voice. Dad? It's Aubrey. Miles almost dropped the file he was holding. He hadn't heard from his 16-year-old daughter in what felt like an eternity. His heart pounded, confusion warring with a glimmer of hope. Miles. Voice unsteady. Aubrey, are you okay? Where are you? Aubrey, sniffling. I'm at home, Mom's at work. Look, Dad, I'm sorry. I said horrible things before. Things I regret. The sadness in her voice tugged at every paternal instinct he had. He remembered the coffee shop showdown months ago when she and Calvin flatly told him they only wanted money from him. Miles. Aubrey, it's all right. I'm here to listen. Take your time. Aubrey, inhaling shakily. I wanted you to know I'm about to graduate high school. Graduation is in 3 weeks, and I want you there if you can make it. A swirl of emotion seized Miles. Pride that she was finishing school, relief that she wanted him present, and a knot of anxiety about Carmen. Miles. Of course I want to be there. But your mom, Aubrey, quickly. Ignore her. This is about you and me. Also, she hesitated, Calvin asked about you. He's coming home from his training program soon. He wants to talk to you too. Miles's mind raced. Could it be true? Calvin had barely spoken to him, let alone asked for a meeting. Miles. I'd love that. But are you sure you two aren't just... Aubrey. We're sure. Dad, we realize we got swayed by everything Mom said. We're older now. We see how manipulative she can be. Please, I need you. Her voice cracked on the last word. Miles blinked away the sting in his own eyes. Miles. I'm here for you, Aubrey. Always. They set up a tentative time to meet for coffee that weekend. After a shaky goodbye, Miles lowered the phone, feeling dazed but oddly buoyant. He stared blankly at his office desk until a quiet knock startled him. Danielle Reyes peeked in, noticing his pale expression. Danielle. Miles? You look like you've seen a ghost. Everything all right? Miles, exhaling. My daughter just called. She wants me at her high school graduation. He explained in brief, voice trembling with cautious excitement. Danielle smiled gently. Danielle, that's wonderful. I'm sure it's complicated, but it's a step forward, right? Miles, I hope so. I'm terrified Carmen will sabotage it somehow. Danielle took a step closer, a supportive warmth in her gaze. Danielle, then don't let her negativity overshadow the good. This is your daughter reconnecting with you. Focus on that. A breath of relief escaped Miles's lips. He nodded. Once Danielle left, he collapsed into his chair, phone still clutched tight. For the first time in many months, a glimmer of genuine optimism coursed through him. Maybe the walls Carmen built aren't so unbreakable after all. Come Saturday morning, Miles found himself pacing outside the Lakeside Coffee Roasters, a cozy spot with brick walls and oversized windows that overlooked a narrow canal in Riverside. Early sunshine gleamed on the water, but his nerves were taut. What if she doesn't show? Drifted through his mind more than once. At precisely 10 o'clock, Aubrey walked up, her posture shy. She wore a simple hoodie and jeans, hair in a loose ponytail, looking so much like the little girl he used to drive to soccer practice. The moment he caught her eye, she bit her lip. Aubrey. Dad. No hostility, no sarcasm, just a quavering greeting. Miles's heart thumped. Miles. Hi, sweetheart. Thanks for coming. They stepped inside, found a corner table near a picture window. The place hummed with quiet conversations. The scent of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries enveloped them. After ordering, Aubrey got a caramel latte. Miles stuck to black coffee. They faced each other. Aubrey, tentative. You look older, Dad. Tired. Miles, soft chuckle. Yeah, I guess the last year aged me a bit. An uncomfortable silence lingered until she fiddled with her cup, gaze dropping. Aubrey. I'm sorry for everything I said at that cafe before. Mom told us you only cared about money, that you had another woman. We believed her. I was so angry. Miles. I know, it's not your fault. Carmen convinced you I abandoned the family. A tear slipped down Aubrey's cheek, and she swiped at it hastily. Aubrey, you didn't abandon us. I see that now. After a while, I realized how many strange men Mom brought around, how she always lied about you. She'd even claim you refused to pay for our things, but I found receipts in a drawer. She trailed off, voice shaky. Miles wanted to embrace her, but he was unsure if she'd accept. Instead, he reached across the table, gently covering her hand with his. She didn't pull away. Miles, I can't lie, it broke me when you and Calvin turned your backs, but I never stopped loving you. Or him. Aubrey, quietly, I know that now. Mom's chaos just wore us down. We thought it was simpler to believe her side. The coffee sat mostly untouched as she poured out the stories of Carmen's late-night arguments, suspicious visitors, and manipulative speeches about Miles's betrayals. Aubrey's eyes glistened with regret. Aubrey, it got worse after you left, ironically. Mom started partying, ignoring us. Calvin left for a training program because he couldn't stand the house. I had to handle chores and everything. A wave of paternal protectiveness surged in Miles. My kids have been dealing with that while I struggled alone? He squeezed Aubrey's hand gently. Miles, I'm so sorry. I wish I'd known or that you'd called me sooner. Aubrey, sniffing. I was scared. Mom said you'd judge me for believing her lies, but I can't keep living like this. He nodded in understanding, throat tight. The coffee machine hissed in the background, a gentle reminder of normalcy while father and daughter peeled back layers of heartbreak. Aubrey, anyway, I want you at my graduation. Mom might flip out, but I don't care. I'd rather have you there no matter what. Miles, count on it. I'll be front row cheering you on. A trembling smile touched her lips. Finally, he couldn't hold back. He stood, moving around the table. She rose too, and they embraced in a hesitant but genuine hug. Warm tears slid down her face, soaking into his shirt. Miles, murmuring, we can't fix everything overnight, but I promise I'm here whenever you need me. Aubrey, thank you. And Calvin, he wants to see you soon. He's realized how messed up things are with Mom. They parted slightly, and Miles brushed a tear from her cheek, heart brimming with affection he'd bottled up for too long. This is all I wanted my kids back in my life. Miles, I'll wait for his call, or you can arrange it. Either way, I'm ready. They lingered a while longer, finishing their drinks with lighter hearts. By the time they stepped outside, the sun had climbed higher, shining on the quiet canal. Aubrey hurried off to catch a bus, waving shyly. Miles watched her fade into the bustle, mind whirling with gratitude and a flicker of apprehension. Carmen won't like this, but I won't let her sabotage us again. A week passed before Calvin reached out. The call came on a humid afternoon when Miles was wrapping up a management briefing. His phone vibrated. The screen showed Calvin's name. Miles excused himself immediately, stepping into a nearby corridor. Miles. Calvin? Son, is that you? Calvin, voice taut. Yeah, I'm in town. If you're free, can we meet at your place? Miles's pulse kicked up. He wants to come over. Miles. Sure, here's my address. I'll be home by 6. True to his word, Miles left work early, picking up some groceries for a quick dinner. The corporate apartment had become more of a home in recent months, but he still hadn't fully decorated. He found himself nervously straightening cushions, wondering what if Calvin storms out again. A knock sounded at 6 sharp. Miles opened the door, heart pounding. Calvin stood there in casual military fatigues. He had joined a specialized youth training program, apparently. His posture was stiff, expression guarded. They exchanged an awkward greeting. Miles. Come in, make yourself comfortable. Want something to drink? Calvin. Water's fine. They settled in the small living room. The evening light slanted through the windows, illuminating Calvin's features. He looked older, a bit hardened. He studied the minimal furnishings, the stack of work files on the table. Calvin, quietly. This is where you live now? Miles. Yeah, for now. Might upgrade if I can. It's not much, but it's a start. Silence thickened. Memories of their hostile last meeting lingering. Miles cleared his throat. Miles. Aubrey told me you've been reconsidering some things. I'm sorry if you felt abandoned. Calvin, voice unsteady. I used to think you were the bad guy, leaving us behind. But then I saw how Mom acts. She's never stable. She'd lie about you, about money. I realized she messed with our heads. He clenched his jaw, struggling with emotion. Miles leaned forward, hands clasped. Miles, all I ever wanted was to protect you two. I wish I could have done more, but your mom shut me out and twisted the story. Calvin, eyes downcast. I feel like an idiot for hating you so long. A raw hush fell. Suddenly, tears welled in Calvin's eyes. The sight shocked Miles. Calvin rarely cried. He reached over gently. Miles, you're not an idiot. You're just a kid stuck in an ugly divorce. Carmen used you as pawns. It's not your fault. Calvin's shoulders shook, and in a rush he leaned forward, letting out muffled sobs. Miles wrapped him in a protective hug, eyes stinging, all the tension of the last year unraveling in these tears. Calvin, voice breaking, I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't know how to trust you again. Miles, we'll rebuild that trust. I promise, step by step. They stayed like that for a long moment, father and son bridging the painful gap. Footsteps in the hallway signaled someone's approach. Danielle Reyes peered around the open doorway. She had a small container of leftover pastries she'd promised to drop off for Miles. Surprised, she froze, about to retreat, but Miles gestured for her to come in softly. Miles, hey Danielle, this is my son, Calvin. Danielle, smiling kindly. Hi, Calvin, nice to meet you. I'm so sorry I didn't mean to interrupt. Calvin, eyes puffy, straightened up, nodding politely. Calvin, hey, it's fine. Danielle set the pastries on the counter, then discreetly stepped back toward the door. Danielle, I'll let you guys talk. If you need me, I'm just upstairs in my unit. She lived a few floors up, having temporarily swapped apartments with another co-worker, an arrangement to help her short commute. Calvin watched her leave, then turned to Miles with a questioning look. Calvin, she's your girlfriend? Miles, rubbing his neck. We're close friends, maybe more. I'm not sure. Calvin took a moment, then he nodded slowly. Calvin, if she makes you happy, I'm not against it. You deserve that, after all the crap you've been through. The sincere comment surprised Miles. Relief and gratitude flickered in his chest. He's accepting Danielle. They stood, momentarily unsure what to say next, before Miles motioned to the kitchen. Miles, let's order pizza or something. We can talk about your training, your plans. I want to hear everything. Calvin, yeah, that'd be great. Miles dialed for delivery, heart lighter than it had been in ages. As father and son started chatting about everyday topics, Calvin's bunkmates, Miles's job in Riverside, they realized a new sense of normalcy was possible. The scars remained, but in that small apartment, real healing began. One evening, not long after Calvin's emotional reunion, Miles found himself tidying his apartment. The day had been quiet, no calls from lawyers, no drama from Carmen. He almost dared to hope life was settling. But an ominous feeling gnawed at him, like a thundercloud on the horizon. Shortly after sunset, the buzzer rang sharply. Miles approached the door, half expecting Calvin or Aubrey dropping by. Instead, when he pulled it open, Carmen Drake stood in the hallway. She wore a fitted black dress and a smug expression, eyes flicking over his humble space as if it was beneath her. Miles, heart-lurching. Carmen? How did you find this place? Carmen, arching a brow. We share children, dear. Wasn't too hard. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, scanning the living room with a distasteful sneer. Carmen, a pathetic little bachelor pad. So this is where you ran off to, playing house with some random woman? Miles's jaw tightened. The old fury stirred at her casual disrespect. Miles, you have no right to barge in. Why are you here? Carmen, flippant. We're still married, technically. I have every right to see how you're living. Her gaze roamed over a framed photo on the side table, Aubrey and Calvin visiting Miles just last week. The sense of intrusion bristled through him. Miles, the divorce is nearly final. Don't pretend otherwise. Carmen, voice dripping venom. You think a piece of paper changes the fact we shared a life for 17 years? I can claim it any time. He felt a cold wave of dread. She was unscrupulous, and now that the kids were warming to him again, Carmen must have sensed her control slipping. Miles, forcing calm. We're done, Carmen. You cheated, you lied, you drove me away. This is over. She scoffed, folding her arms. Carmen. Over? Then how come Aubrey and Calvin are skulking around behind my back, meeting you in secret? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Miles's pulse hammered. Of course she found out. Carmen, stepping closer. You think you can just reclaim them, ruin my life? No. I'll make sure they see what a coward you are. He clenched his fists at his sides, refusing to lose composure. Miles, they have the right to see their father. You can't stop them. Carmen, smirking. We'll see. A mother has ways of influencing her kids. I might remind them how you deserted us. Or maybe I'll give them a sob story about how you ruined my finances. Who do you think they'll pity more? The door behind them creaked. Danielle emerged from the corridor. She had been returning a borrowed phone charger. The tension in the living room was palpable. Carmen swung around, sizing Danielle up with a contemptuous flick of her gaze. Carmen. Oh, so this must be the tramp who lured my husband away. Danielle, raising a brow coolly. Excuse me? I don't know who you think you are, but you have no right to insult me in Miles's home. Carmen let out a harsh laugh. Carmen. My home, dear. He belongs to me, not you. If you think you can replace me, Danielle, voice sharp but calm, Miles isn't your property. You lost that chance the moment you stepped out of your marriage. You don't scare me, and you certainly can't bully him anymore. Miles's heart thudded as he witnessed Danielle confront Carmen with fearless composure. Carmen's eyes flashed with rage. Carmen. Watch your mouth or you'll regret it. I can make your life miserable, both of you. Don't doubt it. Danielle stood her ground, arms crossed confidently. Danielle. Go ahead, try. But the kids are old enough to see the truth about you. They've already chosen to reconnect with Miles. Carmen's mask slipped, revealing a furious scowl. For a moment, Miles thought she might lash out. Then, with a last venomous glare, she stomped toward the door. Carmen, voice trembling with rage, you'll regret crossing me, both of you. I'll tear down this little fantasy you've built. And with that, she yanked the door open and disappeared into the hallway. Miles exhaled shakily. The tension in the room hovered like static electricity. Danielle, turning to Miles, Are you okay? She's quite something. Miles, voice tight, Thank you for standing up for me. I never expected her to show up here. He rubbed his temples, mind swirling with the threat Carmen left hanging in the air. Danielle. She's desperate. She can sense you're moving on, connecting with the kids, building a new life. That terrifies her. Miles, nodding. She won't stop until she's sure I'm miserable. But I won't let her break me again. Danielle placed a reassuring hand on his arm. Outside, a distant siren wailed in the city's streets, a stark reminder that trouble could lurk anywhere. But inside this small apartment, Miles felt a renewed resolve. Yes, Carmen might try to sabotage him, but he wasn't alone. He had Danielle's support, and more importantly, his children's returning trust. Miles, softly. She can rage all she wants this time. I won't cave. They stood in silence for a moment, hearts pounding. The battle with Carmen had escalated, but somehow, Miles felt more determined than ever to protect his fragile, growing happiness. A warm afternoon sun shone through Miles' Hart's office window as he ended a phone call with his daughter Aubrey. Graduation had been a success. Now she'd just announced the date for her wedding, a surprising but joyous milestone. He hung up slowly, feeling both pride and a swirl of nerves. A wedding already? She's still so young. He gathered his thoughts and texted Danielle Reyes. Miles, Aubrey set a date. She wants us both there. Big day in 6 weeks. Moments later, Danielle knocked on the frame of his open office door, stepping in with a gentle smile. Danielle, so we're officially invited? Miles, exhaling. Yes, though there's a catch. Carmen's also invited. Aubrey doesn't want to exclude her mom, but she's terrified Carmen might cause havoc. Danielle slipped into the seat opposite, adjusting the cuff of her blouse. Her eyes reflected concern. Danielle, well, it's Aubrey's big day. We'll help her keep it peaceful. Carmen can't derail this if we stay alert. Miles, I hope so. Aubrey's stressed enough. She's dealing with dress fittings, venue deposits. She asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I said yes. It's all a bit surreal. A bright, affectionate smile touched Danielle's lips. Danielle, you deserve that honor, Miles. After all the heartbreak, it's about time your daughter sees you as the father you've always been. Miles's chest tightened, recalling the bitter months of estrangement. Now seeing Aubrey forging her own life was both heartwarming and terrifying. What if Carmen stirs up drama on that day? That evening, Miles video-called Aubrey and her fiancé, Nick, to discuss wedding plans. Nick was a polite young man who worked as a junior mechanic. They seemed committed, though still quite young. Aubrey admitted she invited Carmen by necessity. No matter how tumultuous their relationship, she was still her mother. Aubrey, over the screen. "Dad, I'm so worried she'll throw a fit. You know how unpredictable she is." Miles, "I understand. Danielle and I can help keep her in check. You just focus on your day." Aubrey released a relieved breath. The call ended, leaving Miles with a sense of responsibility. He knew Carmen wouldn't relinquish her hold easily. The following weekend, father and daughter met for lunch at a bustling cafe, going over minor details. Aubrey showed him the venue pictures on her phone, a small chapel with stained glass windows and a cozy garden outside, perfect for an intimate ceremony. Aubrey, nervously, "Mom keeps texting me, demanding front row seats, saying she'll give some special speech." "Honestly, Dad, I'd rather she didn't, but I'm stuck." Miles, setting down his coffee, "Let's not panic. Danielle and I can intercept any speech attempts. You have a right to enjoy your wedding. We'll figure it out." A soft grin crept across Aubrey's face. She glanced at Miles's hand, noticing he still wore no ring, no symbol from the past or future. "Aubrey, you and Danielle, will you guys eventually get married too?" Miles, caught off guard. We haven't discussed it yet." A spark of curiosity and hope lit her eyes. Aubrey, "Well, if you do, I'd be happy for you." They both laughed, tension easing. Despite Carmen's looming shadow, this wedding planning felt like a long-awaited reconciliation for father and daughter. Aubrey had, in a sense, chosen him to walk her into the next stage of life no matter her mother's protests. By the time Miles drove home, dusk painted the riverside skyline in purple and gold. He pictured the chapel's aisle, imagined handing Aubrey off to Nick. Then he pictured Carmen, possibly glaring from the pews, ready to pounce on any vulnerable moment. "I won't let her poison this day," he vowed silently. Later in his apartment, he updated Danielle. She responded with unwavering confidence. "Danielle, we can handle Carmen. If she tries anything, we'll have security or calm words, whatever it takes. This wedding belongs to Aubrey." Miles smiled at her determination, a grateful warmth flooding him. A swirl of relief mingled with apprehension. The wedding countdown had begun, and the next few weeks would test them all. But if it meant giving Aubrey the joyous celebration she deserved, Miles was ready to stand firm against Carmen's threats. A few days after finalizing the wedding date, Miles sat at his desk, sifting through spreadsheets, when his phone buzzed with an urgent text from his lawyer, Helen Wu. "Helen, call me ASAP. Carmen filed new claim, says you violated divorce agreement." His stomach dropped. Another stunt. He excused himself from the open office area and strode into a quiet hallway, pressing Helen's number. Miles. "Helen, what's going on now?" Helen, exasperated. "Carmen claims you owe additional spousal support. She's also alleging you breached the settlement by harassing her online. Something about defamation tied to your girlfriend." Miles leaned against the corridor wall, mind racing. Danielle was not even part of the settlement. Where was Carmen getting these accusations? Miles. "She's just throwing mud. I haven't posted anything about her. Danielle certainly hasn't either." Helen. "I suspected as much. She's trying to stir trouble before your daughter's wedding, maybe gain leverage or sabotage you financially. We'll counterfile. Do you have any evidence Carmen's claim is baseless?" Miles grimaced. He remembered how Carmen occasionally posted vague rants on social media. She might twist them to frame him or Danielle. He rubbed his forehead, tension throbbing. Miles. "Yes, I can compile screenshots showing we never mentioned her. Also, I can forward you the original settlement terms. This is pure fiction." Helen exhaled in frustration. "Helen, understood. Send everything. We'll respond formally. Stay calm. These suits rarely hold water if we produce clear evidence." He thanked her and hung up. Anger simmered. Carmen had stooped to legal intimidation yet again. That evening, Danielle joined him at the apartment for dinner. She had whipped up a homemade stir-fry as a stress reliever. When he shared the lawsuit news, Her eyes flashed with indignation. Danielle, she's really pushing this, trying to distract you from the wedding or drain your energy. Miles, fork clutched tight. I won't let her ruin Aubrey's plans. This is pure harassment. Helen says we can fight back. Danielle reached for his hand across the small dining table, the scent of ginger and soy sauce lingering around them. Danielle, you're not fighting alone, okay? If she drags me into it, I'll testify or do whatever's needed. A wave of gratitude washed over him. He gave her fingers a gentle squeeze. Miles, thank you. I hate that you're caught in this crossfire. Danielle, resolute, I'm with you. Carmen doesn't intimidate me. In the following days, Helen filed a counterclaim refuting Carmen's allegations. They compiled screenshots of Carmen's social media rants, which ironically contradicted her own lawsuit. Additionally, Laurel Flynn pitched in, emailing statements that Danielle never published any content about Carmen. All the factual evidence pointed to Carmen's fabrication. At a brief preliminary hearing, the judge seemed unimpressed by Carmen's complaint. Miles, dressed in a crisp navy suit, watched as Carmen's new lawyer, a smug-looking man named Anderson, tried to stir confusion. But Helen calmly dismantled each claim, unveiling contradictory timestamps and Carmen's own heated posts, insulting Miles's gold-digger girlfriend. Judge, exchanging a pointed look with Anderson, Miss Drake, your allegations appear unsupported. I see no grounds for additional support or defamation. We'll reschedule if new evidence appears, but for now, there's no case to proceed. Exiting the courtroom, Miles released a breath of relief. Carmen, fuming, stormed off in a swirl of perfume and rage. Anderson trailed her, visibly irritated. Helen, turning to Miles, that went as expected. Don't celebrate too soon, though. Carmen might escalate another angle. Miles, I know, but at least this nonsense is put to rest. He called Danielle to share the outcome. She was waiting anxiously at the bank, phone in hand. The moment he relayed the news, her laughter over the line sounded like a welcome break in the clouds. Danielle, that's one crisis down. I'm sure she's not done, but we'll handle it. Miles, I'm heading back to the office. Then I'll probably meet Aubrey about wedding invitations. He hung up, feeling a mix of victory and wariness. Carmen's legal stunt had fizzled for now, but her desperation was clear. With the wedding drawing closer, Miles suspected she'd find a new angle of attack. Yet each defeat only strengthened his resolve and drew him and Danielle closer in partnership. If she can't break us legally, she might try something more personal. He braced himself for the next move. With less than 2 weeks until Aubrey's wedding, Miles's life was a flurry of last-minute tasks. Tux fittings, floral arrangements, final venue payments. Danielle helped where she could, offering supportive texts, occasional phone calls. Yet a pervasive sense of dread lingered. What if Carmen launched a more personal strike? Then, late one evening, a series of frantic messages bombarded Miles's phone. Aubrey. Dad! Mom posted online pics of you from years ago claiming you're still in love with her? She's saying you're a two-timer. Everyone's freaking out. Miles's stomach lurched. He dialed Aubrey right away. Miles. What exactly did she post? Aubrey, voice quivering. Photos from, like, when you two were on that family trip to the beach. She's edited them to make it look recent, wrote some weird caption about reconciling. People are messaging me, asking if you're dumping Danielle and reuniting with Mom. The sheer audacity took Miles's breath away. Carmen was forging a public narrative to humiliate them. He reassured Aubrey this was fake. After the call, he scrolled through social media, finding Carmen's posts. She'd spliced old vacation pictures with new text like, "Our love never died. Miles is returning to me. Watch for the big reveal." Comments beneath ranged from shock to confusion. Miles, texting Danielle. Carmen forging old pics, claiming we're back together, attempting to sabotage the wedding. Need to act. Danielle responded swiftly. Danielle, let's gather proof those photos are old. We can do a group meeting with your extended family if needed. Don't let her rumor spread. The next day, Miles arranged a small family meeting at a neutral location in Uncle's living room who lived near Riverside. Aubrey arrived in tears, explaining how extended relatives were calling, worried about a family scandal. Calvin showed up, shaking his head in disbelief. Calvin, Mom's gone off the rails again. She cornered me last night, tried to convince me Dad secretly asked her to run away together. It's insane. Miles's jaw tightened. Danielle, by his side, calmly proposed they create a statement or show the actual timestamp data of the photos. So they spent half an hour assembling phone-based proof, old camera metadata, digital footprints verifying the date. Meanwhile, the aunt, uncle, a couple of cousins, and both kids witnessed the truth. Carmen's evidence was pure manipulation. During the meeting, Carmen unexpectedly burst through the front door. She must have followed someone or demanded an invitation. With eyes blazing, she accused Miles of spreading lies to cover up his real intentions. Carmen, you're all gullible if you think he's not calling me at night. I have the messages, Miles, icy calm. Show them then. Produce those so-called texts. She fell silent, no actual messages to present. Frustration twisted her expression. Calvin stepped forward, arms folded, glaring at his mother. Calvin, stop it, Mom. We're not kids anymore. We know you're lying. His fierce defense startled Carmen. Aubrey joined him, voice steady. Aubrey, this wedding is mine, not yours. Dad's walking me down the aisle and Danielle is a guest. I don't care about your fake reunion posts. Just stop. A tense hush filled the room. Carmen's lips trembled with anger. Finally, she spat out, Carmen, fine. If you all choose him over me, I'll wash my hands of the lot of you. But don't come crying when he betrays you too. She whirled around and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Everyone exhaled shakily. Aubrey sank into a chair, tears edging her lashes. Aubrey, I'm so exhausted by her drama, but at least now everyone sees how far she'll go. Miles, I'm sorry you had to endure that, but you've stood strong and we've shown the truth. Cousins and relatives nodded, promising to spread the word that Carmen's claims were false. Outside, daylight glowed softly, suggesting it was time they moved on. The group dispersed, each one offering Miles a supportive nod or hug. Before leaving, Calvin pulled Miles aside. Calvin, Dad, if she tries anything else at the wedding, we'll back you up. I won't let her wreck Aubrey's day. Miles, voice thick with gratitude. Thanks, son. We've come a long way, haven't we? They shared a moment of mutual understanding. Danielle came over, resting a calming hand on Miles's shoulder. Danielle, we have 2 days left before the wedding. Let's finalize any security steps. Maybe the venue can help ensure no outbursts from Carmen? Miles, yes. I'll talk to the staff. With family united, Carmen's rumors won't stand. He believed it. Though Carmen's sabotage attempt rattled them, each confrontation proved her desperation. The wedding was nearly upon them, and Miles felt more resolute than ever. Let Carmen try. Aubrey deserves her celebration, and we won't let twisted lies ruin it. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of St. Helena's Chapel, casting gentle rainbows on the polished pews. On the morning of Aubrey's wedding, Miles stood at the front near a small dressing room, heart pounding with anticipation. He wore a tailored dark gray suit, matching tie, and a white boutonniere. Danielle, in a graceful burgundy dress, hovered beside him, offering quiet reassurance. Miles, exhaling. The flowers arrived. The musicians are tuned so far so good. Danielle, smiling softly. It's a beautiful setup. Aubrey's done a lovely job. Let's keep an eye out for Carmen, though. Family and friends trickled in, filling the rows with warm chatter. Calvin, in a simple black suit, helped guests find their seats. He occasionally flashed Miles a thumbs up as if to say, all clear so far. Then came the moment. The music shifted to a gentle prelude, signaling everyone to stand. Aubrey emerged at the chapel entrance, radiant in an ivory gown with lace accents, a veil pinned delicately in her hair. Miles walked down the aisle to meet her, arms trembling with emotion. She clutched his hand, smiling tearfully. Aubrey whispering, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Miles, voice thick, "I'm honored, sweetheart." They made their way up the aisle together, a hush of admiration following. Nick, the groom, waited at the altar, eyes shining. Miles passed Aubrey's hand to him, stepping aside. The officiant began the ceremony. So far, no sign of Carmen's theatrics, but tension lingered in the air. Midway through the vows, a sharp gasp rippled among the guests near the back. The doors swung open. Carmen Drake stood there wearing a striking crimson dress, hair styled in a dramatic updo. She paused, scanning the crowd, her gaze locking on Miles. The efficient's voice faltered briefly, then continued. Carmen strutted down the side aisle, ignoring whispered protests from relatives. She settled into a front pew, as if she had every right to overshadow the moment. Aubrey's hands trembled slightly, but she pressed on with her vows, determined not to let her mother rattle her. The ceremony progressed without Carmen interrupting, until the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union. That was the cue Carmen seized. Rising abruptly, she cleared her throat. Carmen, I have something to say. A collective intake of breath rippled through the chapel. Aubrey's eyes flared with panic. Miles felt his pulse spike, stepping forward. But before he could speak, Aubrey turned, lifting her veil to address Carmen directly. Aubrey, voice firm. Mom, I love you, but I won't have you destroy this day. If you can't support me without drama, leave. A hush fell. Carmen's painted lips parted in disbelief at her daughter's defiance. Calvin also rose from his seat, crossing the aisle to stand beside Aubrey. Danielle, positioned near Miles, tensed but remained calm. Carmen, hissing, You're all under his spell. Don't you see he's just Aubrey? No, Mom. We see clearly Dad didn't abandon us. You alienated him. This wedding isn't about you. If you can't respect it, please go. Tears glittered in Aubrey's eyes, not from sorrow, but from pent-up frustration. Miles hovered protectively, though letting Aubrey speak her piece. Carmen's face reddened with anger. She glanced around. Seeing the unwavering stares from family members, no one leapt to defend her. Even old family friends avoided eye contact, their silence condemning her outburst. Realizing she had no allies here, she released a bitter scoff. Carmen, fine? You all want me gone? Then so be it. She spun on her stiletto heel and marched back down the aisle. The heavy chapel doors thudded shut behind her, leaving an echo in the still air. A collective exhale spread among the guests. Aubrey swallowed hard, blinking away a tear. The officiant hesitated, then gently cleared his throat. Officiant, shall we continue? Aubrey nodded, voice husky with relief. The remainder of the ceremony proceeded like a peaceful dream. Nick vowed eternal devotion. Aubrey reciprocated with a shining smile. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the chapel erupted in applause. Music filled the air, coloring the moment with triumph and love. Afterward, during the small reception in the garden outside, Miles and Danielle stood by a rose trellis, watching Aubrey and Nick greet guests. The newlyweds' laughter was unburdened, as though Carmen's storm had passed. Danielle, touching Miles's arm, she handled that flawlessly. I'm proud of her. Miles, eyes misty with pride. Me too. Carmen tried, but she didn't break us this time. Calvin joined them, bearing a proud grin. Calvin, we did it, Dad. Mom's fury didn't matter. Miles, not anymore. He gazed at Aubrey, now dancing with Nick under twinkling fairy lights. This day symbolized more than just a wedding, it marked a family's revival. Carmen might lurk with more schemes, but for now, Aubrey's smile shone brighter than any shadow of the past. Miles slipped an arm around Danielle's waist, leaning into her gentle warmth as they watched the newlyweds spin among friends and family. In that tender, celebratory glow, the future looked unexpectedly bright. 3 months had passed since Aubrey's wedding. In the bright living room of the condo he still shared with Danielle Reyes, Miles' heart relaxed on a new sofa. Afternoon sunlight filtered in through tall windows, illuminating the subtle changes that had turned this once impersonal space into a cozy home. Pictures of Aubrey's wedding, a small plant Calvin had gifted, and throw pillows Danielle picked out for color and comfort. Miles, glancing at the photos on the mantel. Aubrey looks so grown up there, feels like yesterday she was 10 and wanting me to braid her hair. Danielle, carrying a tray of iced tea. She's flourishing. Married life seems to suit her. She and Nick visit every couple of weekends, right? Miles. Yes, they'll be here next Sunday. And apparently Calvin's applying to Riverside University. He wants to be closer to me. He says the campus is decent for engineering. Danielle's face brightened at the mention of Calvin's possible move. Danielle. That's fantastic. You'll get to see him more often. Miles nodded, heart warmed by the thought. If he does come, we'd need more space. The condo felt comfortable for two, but not for visiting family. He'd been browsing online listings for larger homes in quieter neighborhoods. Miles. I'm actually scoping out a property near Oakwood Park. It has a yard, 3 bedrooms, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but with Aubrey and Calvin dropping by, it'd be nice. Danielle settled beside him, handing him a glass of tea. Her dark hair fell neatly over her shoulders. She looked pensive. Danielle. Sounds like a beautiful idea. A real family home. She hesitated briefly, fingers tapping the glass. So speaking of family, we never finished that conversation about kids. She watched Miles carefully. He felt a slight rush of nerves. After years of chaos with Carmen and the slow mending of his bond with Aubrey and Calvin, was he ready to start over with a baby? Miles, softly. I've been thinking about it. Honestly, I used to fear I'd just repeat mistakes. But now, seeing how things have turned around, I'm more open to the idea. Danielle, smiling gently. It's not a decision we rush, obviously, but I want you to know, if you want to be a dad again, I'm here. If not, we still have a life together. Her sincerity touched him. He set down his tea and reached for her hand. Miles. I appreciate your patience. Let's just take the next step slow, maybe buy the house first, see how we handle that. Then we can talk about a future baby. A peaceful hush enveloped them. Outside, distant traffic hummed, and a light breeze ruffled the curtains. Miles felt a contentment he hadn't known in a long time. The thought of a child with Danielle, a new start, untainted by old heartbreak, kindled a quiet hope in him. Just then, his phone chimed. Aubrey's name lit up the screen with a text. Dad, Nick and I can't wait to see the new house prospects. Let's do lunch next weekend? He read it aloud to Danielle, who beamed. Danielle, let's do it. We can drive by that Oakwood place afterward. They clinked their iced teas in a light-hearted toast, the moment brimming with possibility. For once, Carmen's name didn't linger in the back of Miles's mind. Instead, he savored the notion of fresh chapters unfolding Aubrey's marriage, Calvin's potential move, and maybe, just maybe, a child with Danielle someday. Late one afternoon, while Miles was finishing up a meeting at the bank, he noticed multiple missed calls from Calvin. Concerned, he returned the call the moment he could slip into a private corridor. Calvin, over the line. Dad, sorry to blow up your phone, but it's Mom. She's not doing well. Miles's heart tensed. He leaned against the corridor's glass wall. Miles. What happened? Calvin, voice heavy. Her latest boyfriend left, and apparently she's deep in debt. One of her so-called friends mentioned she's holed up at an old motel on the outskirts of Midtown. I'm not sure if she's ill, but she sounded off when I spoke to her. It was news that stirred conflicting emotions. On one hand, Carmen had caused him immense pain. On the other, she was still the mother of his children and someone in crisis. Miles. Do you think we should help her? Calvin, softly. I don't know. Aubrey says we can't just ignore her if she's spiraling, but neither of us wants to be dragged into more drama. Miles swallowed the lump in his throat. He told Calvin he'd talk to Danielle and get back to him. That evening, Danielle listened quietly as Miles recounted the situation. A mild worry crossed her face. Danielle. Carmen put you through hell, but if she's truly at rock bottom? Miles. I know. I can't let her suffer to the point of real harm, not when the kids are frantic. But how do I approach her without getting sucked into her chaos? They decided to do some basic checks. A quick drive to the motel, see if Carmen needed medical attention, gather facts. Danielle offered to accompany him, but Miles asked her to stay behind. This time he sensed Carmen might lash out if she saw Danielle. The next day, with Calvin's directions, Miles found the motel, a rundown structure with flickering neon signage. He parked near Carmen's room number. The afternoon heat pressed down, intensifying the stale smell of cigarettes and damp pavement. He knocked lightly on the chipped door. No answer. He tried again. Miles. Carmen? It's me, Miles. A muffled curse came from within. Then the door cracked open. Carmen peered out, hair disheveled, circles under her eyes. She looked thinner, the usual polished exterior gone. She recognized him, stiffening. Carmen, voice raspy. What do you want? Here to gloat? Miles, keeping his tone gentle. No, Calvin's worried. Aubrey, too. I just wanted to see if you're okay. She let out a bitter laugh, stepping aside so he could enter. The room was cluttered with takeaway boxes, crumpled receipts, clothes strewn about. Her once proud posture sagged as she sank onto a worn chair. Carmen, so you heard. My boyfriend left. Bills piled up. Everyone else bailed on me. Welcome to my kingdom. Miles glanced around, heart heavy. Despite the resentment he felt, seeing her in this state stirred pity. Miles. Carmen, I can help find resources, some short-term housing or therapy maybe. The kids ask me, Carmen, shooting him a sharp look. The kids. Sure, they want to swoop in and play hero. Did you come to rub in how great your life is now? He bit back a surge of anger. She's lashing out because she's vulnerable, he told himself. Miles, look, I'm not here to fight. If you need medical help or a place to stabilize, I can make calls. But if you'd rather push me away, I'll go. She scoffed, eyes brimming with an emotion he couldn't label desperation, maybe. Her voice dropped. Carmen, of course you're so noble. Meanwhile, I messed up everything, even the kids. Her shoulders trembled. For a second, Miles saw the cracks in her armor, the regret swirling inside. Yet he recalled the countless times she'd manipulated him. Approaching gently, he laid a business card on the rickety dresser, an outreach center that offered counseling and financial advice. Miles, call them. They're not connected to me, so no pride wounded, but do it for yourself if you want to climb out of this hole. Carmen took the card, staring at it. Miles quietly left, uncertain if she'd act on his suggestion. Outside in the scorching sun, he exhaled. A swirl of empathy and lingering anger churned inside him. She has to choose to accept help. At least the kids can know I tried. He informed Calvin that Carmen was alive, albeit unwell, and gave him the outreach number. Then he drove away, heart heavy with unanswered questions. She caused so much damage, yet I can't stand by if she truly collapses. The choice now lay with Carmen. A week later, Miles got a call from Aubrey, sounding tense. Dad, Mom's in the hospital. She collapsed some kind of severe dehydration, maybe exhaustion. She used that helpline you gave her and an ambulance was called. His gut clenched. He drove straight to the small clinic near Midtown. In a stark white corridor, he found Carmen's room number. A subdued Calvin stood outside, arms folded. Calvin. She's stable now, but her blood pressure was dangerously low. The doctor says she's been neglecting her health. Maybe too much stress or not enough food. Miles nodded grimly. The door creaked open as a nurse stepped out. She confirmed Carmen was awake, though groggy. Aubrey and Nick hovered inside, quietly worried. Danielle had offered to come, but Miles suggested he handle this alone with his kids. Slipping into the cramped hospital room, he met Carmen's gaze. She looked frail, an IV drip in her arm. Carmen. Surprised you bothered coming. Miles, keeping his voice calm. Aubrey and Calvin called me. Also, I told you I wouldn't stand by if you needed help. Her eyes flicked away, guilt or shame crossing her features. Aubrey squeezed her mother's hand, visibly torn between care and lingering hurt. Calvin stood near the bed, his posture tense. Carmen. I guess your fancy outreach center worked, huh? A hollow laugh. They forced me to see how messed up I am, but it's probably too late to fix anything. Miles took a slow breath, mindful of the swirl of resentment and compassion. The kids anxiously watched him. Danielle's voice echoed in his mind. She's desperate. Show her you're not out for revenge. Miles. It's never too late to get on a better path, Carmen, if you can accept genuine help. We all want you stable for your own sake and for Aubrey and Calvin. Carmen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She looked at the kids, a flicker of remorse evident. Carmen, voice trembling. I've messed up so badly. None of you deserve to be near me. Aubrey. Mom, just take the help. Don't push us away again. Silence thickened. Miles sensed the moment had arrived for a final stance. Either maintain a grudging distance or choose compassion. He stepped closer to the bed, arms folded. Miles. I'm not returning to you, Carmen. We can't rebuild what you destroyed, but I can let go of the anger if you choose to let go of the lies. Her lips quivered. She nodded slowly, tears escaping. Calvin cleared his throat, eyes shiny. Calvin, that's all we want, Mom. Honesty. We won't abandon you if you're serious about changing. She covered her face with a shaking hand, raw sobs breaking through. For a long minute, the kids hovered, gently comforting her. Miles remained at a respectful distance, letting them have that family moment. She's their mother, despite everything. They still love her. Finally, Carmen looked up, eyes red. Carmen. I'll try. No more stunts, no more smears, I'm done. But you, Miles, will you really forgive me? He inhaled, remembering the nights of betrayal and heartbreak, the manipulations, the legal battles. Forgiveness wouldn't erase the past, but it might release him from the weight. Miles, quietly. I forgive you, Carmen, for my own peace. But we're never returning to that marriage. I'm building a new life with Danielle. I hope you find a healthier path forward. Her nod was small, yet somehow significant. The tension in the room lifted fractionally, replaced by an exhausted acceptance. Aubrey and Calvin exhaled relief. The nurse peeked in, reminding them not to overwhelm the patient. As they left the ward, Aubrey leaned against Miles, tears of mixed emotions glistening. Aubrey, thank you, Dad, for not abandoning her. Miles, hugging her gently, we do what's right even if it hurts. I hope she follows through. Outside, the midday sun shone bright. Calvin gave Miles a nod of quiet respect. They parted ways, Miles driving back to Riverside with a heavy but strangely unburdened heart. Carmen might never be a perfect mother or ex-wife, but at least this final confrontation ended with a measure of hope, and no more illusions or resentments chaining him down. 2 months later, Miles closed the door of a newly purchased suburban house just off Oakwood Park's tree-lined street. The day was mild, and gentle breeze rustled through budding flowers in the front yard. Danielle Reyes stood in the doorway, smiling as she watched him carry in another box labeled Living Room. Danielle, welcome to your new domain, Mr. Hart, she teased. Miles, winking. Our domain, Miss Reyes, soon to be Mrs. Hart, if you're still interested in that ring discussion. Her cheeks warmed, but she playfully bumped his shoulder. Danielle, we'll see how you handle this move before I say yes or no. They shared a laugh, the easy banter reflecting how far Miles had come since the days of despair. The spacious interior echoed with possibility. Bright windows, an open kitchen, and extra bedrooms for potential children and visiting adult kids. Painted walls in soft beige replaced the stark emptiness of his old condo. Late morning, Aubrey and Nick arrived, arms laden with housewarming gifts. Calvin trailed behind, a box of groceries in hand, wearing a new college hoodie. Calvin, surprise, my fall enrollment's confirmed. I'll be staying nearby in the dorm, though I might crash here sometimes if that's okay. Miles, eyes shining. Anytime, son. This is your home, too. They spent the afternoon assembling furniture and joking about the color schemes. The sun's rays spilled across the living room floor, illuminating the group's laughter and camaraderie. Nick and Calvin debated over the best spot for a TV. Aubrey arranged decorative items in the kitchen. Danielle occasionally paused to snap photos on her phone. At mid-afternoon, they all gathered on the back patio, where Danielle had set out freshly baked cookies and lemonade. A slight breeze carried the scent of cut grass, and beyond the fence, tall oaks provided a peaceful canopy. Miles felt a swell of gratitude seeing his children relaxed, carefree. Carmen, for once, wasn't the main topic. She was reportedly attending therapy and handling her finances with an advisor's help. No theatrics threatened this day. Aubrey, sipping lemonade. You two planning to fill these extra bedrooms with more kids, maybe? Miles, exchanging a glance with Danielle. We're discussing it, one step at a time. Right now, we're just happy to be together. Danielle, grinning. But who knows? Life's full of surprises. Aubrey and Calvin shared an amused smile as if pleased by the idea. Nick nudged Aubrey with a playful elbow, whispering something that made her giggle. The atmosphere was warm, unhurried. Miles recalled a time he believed he'd never feel such peace again, but here it was real, tangible. When the sun began to dip, painting the sky in gentle oranges and pinks, they all decided to enjoy a casual dinner on the patio. Calvin rolled a small barbecue grill over, Nick lit it, and soon the aroma of grilled veggies and chicken filled the air. They chatted about everyday life. Calvin's upcoming classes, Nick's job, Aubrey's plan to start a small online craft business. Danielle chimed in with stories about her own family's traditions. Miles, quietly to Danielle. "This is the future I didn't think I could have. Thank you for being part of it." Danielle, "You earned it by choosing to heal and not let the past define you." After dinner, they all lounged on patio chairs, gazing at the twilight creeping across the yard. Fireflies flickered among the shrubs and a soft hush settled. Miles rose from his seat, clearing his throat. "Miles, I just want to say how grateful I am. A year ago, I thought everything was lost. But we've mended so much. Aubrey and Calvin, you forgave me. I forgave your mom. And Danielle, you taught me to trust again." Aubrey pressed a hand to her heart, her eyes glossy with emotion. Calvin gave a supportive nod while Danielle's face glowed in the warm light of a nearby lantern. "Calvin, we're proud of you too, Dad. Watching you fight your way back, letting us back into your life, it means a lot." The hush returned, more comforting this time. They lingered there, bathed in the gentle embrace of a late summer evening, the cicadas hum a peaceful background chorus. Overhead, stars winked into view one by one. In that soft, starkest moment, Miles reflected on his journey. From the heartbreak of betrayal to the trials of legal battles, from the despair of losing his children's trust to the warmth of a newly bonded family, he had traveled a road lined with pain and lessons. Now, with Danielle's hand in his and his children around him, a wave of hope and love radiated through his chest. Miles, almost to himself. "It's a new dawn for us all." He raised his gaze to meet Danielle's affectionate smile, then looked at Aubrey and Calvin. Their eyes shone with acceptance, contentment, and unspoken promise of the future. There, under the tranquil canopy of a starlit sky, the final shadows of the past receded, replaced by a renewed sense of belonging. Miles' heart had found his way home at last,